Hey guys, let's take a look at some workflow stuff for TP9. I'm not going to teach you how to use Dimension here or Stager, but I want to show you some of the things that you might run into, and hopefully this will make your life a little bit easier if you're working on Tech Project 9. Okay, so started a blank document. So let's enable GPU rendering. If you have it, use it. Okay, I want to get an image into the background here because that's the first step of the assignment. So I'm going to go File, Import, and Images Background. Okay, and then I have it saved somewhere. I should have had this file already, but buried in here. Let's see. Where is this thing? Sorry, guys. Okay, I've got a scene ready to play with here. So there's my background image. And you'll notice that this pops up over here on the right, automatically match lighting, perspective, and canvas size to your background image. Let's hit OK. And hopefully it'll work. Not seeing much happen there. Did it do anything? Let's try again. Hit OK. All right. If it works, great. If not, yeah, it looks like it's trying. This is one of those auto features, like many in Photoshop and other programs, where if it works, great, let it save you some time. But a lot of times it doesn't. And so it's better just to cut your losses and hit undo. If it worked for you, great. Let it work for you. But it didn't work for me. I don't like the results. So I'm just going to start over from scratch with this space. All right, let's do this again. Should go faster this time. Import images background. And it's this one that I want to use. Open that up. I'm not going to say match image this time. I'm going to match the image myself. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just rotate the environment. And the key here is look at that grid. If we turn off that background scene, you can see that there's like a ground plane there going off into infinity. There's no horizon. It just keeps going. And it's not flat. It's viewed from an angle, right? But my photo, my background scene is viewed from an angle. So I want to make the two of those match. Otherwise, when I put down an object here, let me just put one down so we can see how badly out of perspective it is, this cube. It doesn't look like it's actually sitting there on the desk, right? So let me make that a little bit smaller. It's not hiding everything. And then from there, I want to change the rotation of my environment to better match the actual photograph that's under it. So I'm just going to look at that sphere, that cube, and see when does it start to look like it's actually sitting there in that scene. And the handy thing about this photo and some of the photos that I put into the Dropbox folder for you guys, and ones if you're going to be looking online, look for images that have cheat codes in them. They have lines. Like there's these lines on the wood floor here that tell me where the direction of the floor is, like in terms of what perspective it is. So I can keep rotating this a little bit and rotate it until that thing is the grid. I'm not even looking at the sphere right now, but the grid matches the floor. If you've got an image that has like a tile countertop or something, or a wood floor with lines in it, or a wood table or something, anything where there's perspective lines in it, that's going to make your life much, much easier. So I'm going to go for there. I could perfect this a little more, but for now, for a demo, I think it's okay. All right, now I'm going to look at the lighting next. So looking at the lighting, I can see that there is the photo, light's coming from above and to the right, kind of, right? Because the shadow's going down and to the left. And I can tell some things about the quality of that shadow too. So from here, I'm just going to experiment a little bit. Now, experimenting with lighting is kind of an interesting process. It's iterative. So you're going to do a little bit of something and then you're going to change and then go back and forth. Looking at the screen right now, it's not going to give me an actual preview of anything realistic in terms of how the render is going to turn out. But it does tell me the direction of the light's wrong. My shadow's going that way. It needs to go the other way. So I can look at what lights do I have. Lights are going to be in the environment here in Dimension. I'm going to go to Lights. And it has an environment light, which if I turn off, there's no environment light and everything goes dark. I have a rotation parameter that I can adjust, and that's just going to allow the rotation of something in this scene to be changed. Now, what is it that's being changed? Well, it's this. So An environment light is a 360 photo. Think of a globe. If you were to take an X-Acto knife and cut the image off of a globe and stretch it out into a rectangle, that's what this is. It's a sphere stretched into a rectangular. The word is equirectangular projection. So this is an equirectangular image that wraps around my 3D space and imparts light and reflections to things. So you can see there's a bright highlight there. That's casting shadows. There's some light over here. There's dark spots and so on. And if my cube here was actually like metal, let's put metal on that, then we could potentially see actual reflections of that. Let me turn on ray tracing. As you work, turning on ray tracing occasionally will let it render the lighting a lot more realistically. I mean, it's going to be what you do when you finish your project is render it, but this is kind of an interim temporary render. So we can see that that's what the light looks like. If we turn that off, then that's not very accurate to our actual lighting. But that is, and we're seeing reflections of the stuff around it. Now, a cube is great, mainly for perspective, because it's easy to judge if perspective is off. But for lighting, I like to use a sphere actually. So I'm going to go into my starter assets and let's turn off that cube. We'll just turn its visibility off right now. And I'm going to drag a sphere out here, and it came in a little bit big. That's okay. I'll tweak it later. But if I turn on a different material for this, let's go ahead and add metal onto that and turn on ray tracing too. You can really easily see the reflections of that 3D space. And dimension is trying to add reflections as if like the photo underneath it is reflecting from below too. That's just kind of how dimension works. It likes to do that for you, which sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. If that's distracting, go into ground and let's turn off the ground plane for now. So I'm just going to turn off the ground plane so I can see the effects of my light there without that. All right, so back to lights, environment light. This one doesn't match the scene, really, does it? Okay, so one of the things that if match image had worked for us, would have done is it would have generated an image-based light or an environment light from the background photo. So I don't know if it's going to let us do that, but what did that environment light view? Oh, let's toggle that on and off. That just shows what our environment light is. Okay, cool. Anyway, I'm going to try to just get around that. Let's go ahead and click on this environment light. And we can click on the folder. And we can add a different environment light if we want to. So I'm in TP9 and I've got where, oh, okay. There's going to be limitations on what's actually in here because I've got JPEGs in there, but they're not showing up. And the reason for that is because it doesn't actually work with JPEGs. They have to be specific types of files. They have to be 32-bit files, which we may get into that. We may not. If you know what a 32-bit EXR is and you know how to make one, then go for it. But otherwise, don't worry about it. So I can't place an image there that is an HDR image, but I can change this to be JPEG, and then I'll see other images, maybe, that could work. We'll see. Let's go find this image. I'm going to put this image in here and hit open. All right, and then let's see what that is now our environment light. And it's adding reflections and all kinds of stuff here. On the sphere, we can turn its intensity down a little bit. We can rotate it around. And you see that it's super, super distorted. That's okay though. I'm just using it as kind of like a guide. See how the hand is being fake reflected in here? If I just use this to kind of get things close, then that's going to, for the most part, give us some fairly realistic reflections and color casts and white balance and everything that matches our scene. Okay, so I'm going to start with that as my image-based light source. And I can turn its intensity up and down and whatever, but let me go back and turn on the ground again so we can see this with some shadows. Okay, I've got ray tracing on. And now the mirror part is distracting, so I'm going to put it back to matte or something. And I don't really have any strong shadows on that, so I think my environment light is a little too bright. Let's turn its intensity way down. And we need to add a light source that's just, I mean, you can see, I don't know if you can see it on Zoom, but it's got some color to it now. Rather than just pure gray, it's got a little bit of the color cast from the photo underneath. That's what that environment light did. Okay. All right. So next, let's add some other light sources. I'm going to click the plus here under lighting, or I can go over to the starter assets and I can choose from some lights here. I'm going to add a circle light. A circle light is just literally a parameter that we add that puts a 3D object that it emits light. You can't see it or interact with it. It just shows up in your environment. If you're in Stager, it puts I say physical. It's none of it's physical, but a physical light, physically represented light in your 3D space that you can grab and you can move around. You can change with 3D settings. That's a big difference between Stager and Dimension. But for now, I'm just going with this. How does it look, guys? I mean, our shadow, we've got a shadow over here that kind of has the same similar characteristics as this, but maybe this shadow, see, it's not quite as dark as this one. This one's a little more dense. So I'm going to go back to my environment light now and just bring that intensity up a little bit. Try to get things to match a little. And ray tracing is on while I'm changing the lighting stuff because it's going to be really, I mean, we turn it off, that's not realistic to what our actual light's going to be when we render. So turn that on so we can actually see kind of the effect of our light taking place here. Okay, without making this super, super long, this is close enough for my purposes right now. It doesn't match the photo very well. You can see like there's this really, really dark, dense shadow right underneath the wrist, and my shadow lacks that. And there's some physical characteristics of lighting that we're missing here with the lights that I've added, but I don't want this to be a 75-minute video. So I'm going to keep moving. Just know that you're going to want to tweak and tweak and tweak. And maybe what it means is you do all your 3D stuff here in Dimension, and then you go into Photoshop and you add in some more of that density in the shadow that's close. So the best I can tell you is figure that out. That's the fun part. Okay. All right. So I'm not going to actually use the sphere either. So I want to get rid of that. I can probably just delete both of these now. Let's, where's my delete? How come it's not deleting you? There we go. Delete. I'm just hitting the delete key while those are selected. All right. So now I've got my lighting. I've got kind of some perspective. I've got things going on, and I want to go back to my starter assets now. And I want to add a couple of things. This is what the assignment requirements are, is that we add something to our scene. So try to find something that actually makes sense for this particular image or whatever image it is that you're using. I'm going to add a coffee cup, right? So we'll drag this out here. And it comes in pretty much in perspective already, right? So that's cool. The scale may be off. We may decide we want to put it somewhere else, but I'm just using those on object widgets to tweak that. And I can tell right now the lighting with this object really kind of doesn't match what I think it should be, but that's okay for now. Again, you guys are going to tweak. I told you already the lighting is not great for this. I'm going to go into some of the object parts and change them, like this lid. I want it to be a little different material. So I'm going to grab a different material for that cup lid. I want it to be, let's see, do I have plastic? I want it plastic. Cloudy plastic, sure. Hard plastic, solid, hard plastic. We'll just drop that on there. There we go, cool. All right, that's looking interesting so far. The bottom part, the cup, I want that to be paper. Go in here, and let's pick this paper. I don't know if that's the right one, but put that paper on there. It probably is pretty similar to what it was before. All right, cool. And then on that object, I want to add a decal. So I'm going to go over here, I believe, place image on model. And I think I have some, oh, where did it go? I'm just going to put this ASU logo on it. All right, where did it go? It's in there somewhere. So let's move this around and see if we can get it to show up. It's in there. Oh, turn off ray tracing while you're doing this stuff. Like it will make it run so much faster and smoother. Okay, so now we're getting into there. Let's rotate this around. Have you guys ever tried to Photoshop things into perspective on curves and stuff? Like that's a pain, right? This is so easy. This is what dimension and stator is all about. Like the whole reason that we use it in here is because it makes it so easy to do mockups. And we can make them photorealistic. Okay, so I'm not going to do much to tweak that. Like obviously spend a little more time on yours, but there, I've modified this a little bit. We'll speed this up. I'm turning off ray tracing. The more stuff you add, the longer and longer ray tracing is going to take. So I've got the cup kind of how I want it. So I'm just going to turn the visibility off for the cup. Okay. And then I'm going to move on to the next part of the assignment, which is to add some text. And text is over here in my starter assets. So I'm going to add some text and just drop something out here. And it's going to come in with lorem ipsum kind of gibberish text. Let's go and just transform this a little bit to match our space. Gonna flip this down. Exactly -90. I mean, what you guys do in yours is going to be totally different from mine. I'm just doing this because mine is an overhead picture like that, right? Why don't I have my controls? Something is wrong. I would like to have transform controls where I can put a number in instead of just trying to guess how much I rotated it. All right, I'm going to click this button right here. Is really handy. Move to ground. And uh, yeah, I don't know if that's quite accurate, but we'll see. All right, so in my text object, something's broken. It's not letting me change the text. Hmm. Okay, guys, we're gonna pause the video because I need to just save it and turn it off and on again. Let's see if this works. Let's just save this real quick on my desktop. Dimension has been around a little while. It's never been really a priority for Adobe, it feels like. Kind of an add-on. And so I found there are reliability issues and stuff. They really want you to pay 50 bucks a month for the Substance 3D suite, which means like Stager, not Dimension. Dimension's free with your regular subscription. All right, let's see if this worked. There we go. Okay, now we've got the parameters. So this is what I was looking for before. All right, let's check our transform again really quick. I want the rotation to be exactly -90. On the z-axis, sorry. Okay, there. Now I know it's actually sitting flat on the ground. I'm going to just, these are so close, it's going to bug me if it's 179 point dot dot dot. So there we go. Okay. And then this one, we'll just put that at exactly 90. All right. I just like the whole numbers. But you can see that the shadows, if I turn on ray tracing here, the shadows are a lot more accurate to the actual environment, right? But anyway, let's go ahead and keep going. I'm going to go into my object, and I don't want to say this. I wanted to say something that has to do with my stuff. Now, you guys, you're under the working premise here is that you guys are kind of making an ad for a product. So think along those lines. I'm just doing a demo, so I'm just going to say my name. There we go. Okay. Let me pick a different font. So you just have access to any fonts that are on your computer. Let's do whatever that is. Sure. Okay. All right. Now, as I look at this object, there are a lot of parameters that we can change, the size and so on. There's the object itself, which includes the text, the font. We have displacement, which we're not going to get into here, material, and there's different parts of this. There's transform of the UV, there's the base material. Uh, and what I want to do, there's a place where we can add, is there, where did it go? Maybe not. They change things often enough in here that I find myself always like, where did it go? Maybe I don't have options to. Anyway, what I wanted to do is add a little bit of a bevel. Not in our actions. I don't know if you guys can find it, great. The thing with 3D objects is that they are mathematically generated, and the angles on things are going to be perfect right angles on this text. Like I want the corners of this to have some curves so it looks a little bit more like an actual thing. Like molded plastic, like these markers, they've got rounded edges. Even the hard edges, the sharp edges are rounded a bit. And so for my text to be perfectly geometrically right angles on the edges, it looks a little fake. And so I like to add just a tiny little bevel to things. Oh, there it is. I'm sorry, bevel right there. Okay. So that's maybe too much. I'm going to put a round one. You guys can do as you wish. I want it to be just a tiny little bit. All right. And I already like that much better. Okay. And then material, I'm just on the basic matte material here. I want to add something more interesting. I wonder if we have like a cool wood grain. Let's try this cedar. Remember to turn off ray tracing as you're working with stuff. It'll speed your life up a bit, but I didn't. Rather than me picking and choosing forever, I'm just gonna go with that one. Okay, let me turn on my coffee cup again. Looking at it now, I think that cup is way too small for this scene. Like it's bigger than that in relation to a Sharpie, right? But I'm not gonna mess with it. You guys try to make yours as realistic as you can. But I think for the purposes of this assignment, like that's close enough to what I want to achieve in dimension. Now, the next step, if I did have, I mean, the perfectionist in me is going crazy here, thinking I need to fix these shadows, I need to have a more interesting logo, and on and on. But we need to move on. So anyway, when you're happy with what you have, you're going to go to render, and we want to use ray tracing. I reformatted my computer, or IT did anyway, so I've got all these pop-ups. First time, you guys will see these too, so read them. But what we want to do is render this out at high quality with your GPU if you can. I'm going to render mine at a lower quality just so this doesn't take all day. Render your guys, do it a little higher quality, obviously. Okay, and I want full resolution, which mine is not a high resolution file to begin with. I had it set up at 1920 by 1080. Your mileage may vary. Okay, so actually I'm going to turn this up because it should go fast. It's a small thing. All right, I want to render the camera right now, which is 1920 by 1080. You can add, I skipped this over, you should see it in your reading, but you can add multiple cameras. There's a viewport camera too, which has higher resolution. I'm just going to stick with a low one for now, but you guys try to get good results. Watch the video so you understand how to do that. I'm going to keep my file name super descriptive here. And I want to change the file format. This is the important part to PSD 16 bits per channel. All right, so I'm going to just hit render now. And hopefully it goes quick. Ooh, is it done already? Oh, super quick. Nice. Okay. So then I'm going to go to my desktop and there it is. Untitled camera.psd. I think I have Photoshop open in the background here. There it is. All right. So Photoshop's open. Let's go ahead and go back to desktop, or was it? And there it is. Okay. So then I'll bring this into Photoshop, and this might look kind of familiar to you, some of it anyhow. We've got these additional layers, which has a material selection mask, object selection mask, and a depth mask, which in the scene, there's not a whole lot going on with any of those really that I couldn't do. But I mean, this is useful for some of the compositing I might want to do. Okay, we've got the rendered image itself. Let me turn this other stuff off real quick. Rendered image. See how grainy it is? I used those fast settings. And then we have a rendered image that's been denoised. And depending on your output settings and stuff, you might get better results with the noise and grain matching your photo, or you might find it's better without it. So it gives you both. But compared to the Pixel Squid assignment, the TP8 that we did, it had so many options there. This doesn't have a lot of options, right? You got rendered image, a denoised version, and then some material selections and depth. There's a background color too. So we have that. But that's it. So now from here, I want to actually go ahead and finish this composite. And so I'm going to look at the image and do the regular Photoshop stuff that we would do. So I'm going to look a little closer at this and see that there's some grain, some noise in the underlying photo. Like look at those shadows, how grainy and noisy they are. And then if you look at my shadows over here, it's like perfectly clean. So I need to do some things to make it match. And as a reminder, like 3D objects, they're generated by software and they're going to be geometrically perfect and everything. And that's not always the case with real physical objects. And so you can hopefully see how much of a difference it added having that little bit of bevel on my text. But it does look like it's actually sitting in the scene to me. I think it did pretty good at that. I'm going to convert this to a smart object so that I can do something like run a smart filter. Let's add a little bit of noise on here. It's way too much noise, right? And there's other ways to add noise that I like better. Really, what I want to do is I want to just add noise into the shadows, and this particular method is going to add noise all over in the image unless I tweak the mask, which is what I'm going to do right now. But that looks like close enough for now. It's more than I wanted, and it's definitely way too much noise in the bright parts, which, the bright parts of the image, they have very little noise. It's the shadows that have the noise. Okay, so in my smart filter here, I would need to tweak that a little bit. And so what I'm going to do is go into my material selection masks, and this will be quick and dirty version. I'm just going to select it. Got to click on the right layer if we want to make our selection correctly. So I'm going to click on this. Let's turn off contiguous so we can do this a little faster. There we go. Shift click here, shift click here. There we go. So all my 3D objects now, which I'm just ballparking it, those are the ones that are kind of not dark. I mean, there are dark parts, but really what we should do is like a luminosity mask. But I'm going to go into my smart filter mask here and I'll just use my brush tool. And I'm going to brush in maybe like a gray right around there maybe. Okay. And what that's going to do is it's going to hide some of the grain from those areas that I have selected. Promise guys, there's way better ways to do this than what I'm showing you. That's not the purpose of what I'm showing you today, but hopefully get some of the idea across that we can just be a little bit more strategic about where we put that noise. All right, so there we go. It looks a little bit more realistic now in terms of the less noise being on the brighter parts of the image, and I can tweak and tweak and tweak. Let me just change the flow of my brush and turn it way down, and the opacity, I'll turn that down too. Let's make it a little bigger, make sure the edges are soft. Okay, and then if I paint on this mask, will it let me show the mask on smart? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I paint on this mask, that's going to hide noise from certain parts of the image, right? So I want less right here. Actually, let me switch this to pure black because I got a low flow. So I'll just kind of paint out. Let me show you again here. I'm just adding a little bit darker masking to these parts. And at this point, it doesn't matter what's going on in the background because it's a smart filter. It's not being applied anywhere that I don't want it to be. I've got my opacity and flow way too low. It's going to take forever. Okay, see how that's working? You guys, I got to set up my brush. This is driving me crazy, but I don't have time. This is getting too long already. Anyhow, Hopefully the idea is making sense, so we can be selective about where we add noise and grain. Use whatever method you think is going to work the best. That's not right because I'm painting on a blank layer. I want to paint on the mask. There we go. All right, if I don't want any noise really on those letters, just be careful how much you do that. You can see I'm kind of painting it out from certain. Oh my goodness, you guys, I just hit delete twice. Keyboard shortcuts are going crazy here. One day I will figure out that I always have to click on that mask first. That day is not today. All right, that's overboard, but the purpose is just to show you kind of how we can be specific and how much of a difference it adds having some noise and grain on there. So I might want to go into this thing right here, and then I can just adjust overall its density of the mask, its feather. Density, I think, is a good one to play with. Anyway, hopefully some of this made some sense and you guys can enjoy making 3D scenes, okay? So looking back at the assignment, just to make sure I didn't miss telling you anything important, custom environment light, that's a requirement. Must have scene appropriate lighting and shadows in 3D assets. Perspective of the text object must match the scene or the background or the photo. Okay, so you have, in this case, mine is laying flat on the surface. If it was tilted upright, you wouldn't be able to see it very well in this particular photo, but imagine, it's a countertop looking at it from more straight on. If this was sitting upright, it could, you could realistically have block cutout letters that sit on a countertop, right? What if this was not a D and it was like the letter P or something where you have a descender that goes down, flip this upside down, this D. If you had this sitting on a countertop, then what's it going to look like? It's going to be either sticking up above the rest of it, or it's just going to be weird. So font choices, maybe using all caps instead of lowercase letters with descenders, like that's going to make it so that your text can actually sit in the scene better. All right. In the interest of time, I'm not going to do it, but what I would do is let me turn off my smart filter. Remember the shadows here are not really quite matching the photo. Like I don't think this shadow really matches this shadow in terms of its quality and how much it fades out and how not dense it is out here and how dark and dense it is really close. This doesn't quite match. I would tweak that here in Photoshop using adjustment layers, curves, using blend modes and all that other stuff that we do. Maybe adding some warmer colors into the shadows to match the warm tones that you see in these shadows and so on. So I'm skipping that in interest of time, but I hope this helped a little bit and hopefully you guys got some ideas of what to do on this and hope to see some questions from you in Slack. So, all right, cool. Talk to you later.